What's up, Saab fans around the world, and welcome back to part 2 of this gearbox clutch upgrade video. So right now, in the last video, to recap a little bit, we painted the subframe, we installed the subframe bushings. So if you haven't seen that video, I'm gonna link to it down below and see it first. So right now we're gonna start by removing the gearbox and the clutch, install the new clutch, then install the new gearbox, flush the new gearbox. Yeah, you will see, you get the drill. Let's get this going. So now I have removed the top engine mount for the transmission and lowered the engine approximately 10 centimeters or something like that. And I'm holding the gearbox with my homemade stand. It's not the best, but it does the job. So now we're going to try to wiggle this out. So here we have the old gearbox. It's an FM55B08 and I'm changing to an FM55B05. No big difference, just newer. Otherwise they are basically the same. So one issue I'm having right now is this gearbox is locked in 4th gear, and this gearbox has been just dragged around, so I don't know what gear's in it right now, but I'm trying to copy where this sits and lock it in. And I have started to disassemble the slave cylinder right here. The first thing I noticed was that the nut on this one was rounded and it sits like hell, and one of the bolts or the screws didn't came out, so I had to drill it out. So I have to figure out a way how to lose this one without destroying anything. Then I'm going to transfer this piping because it's much fresher than this one, and install the new slave cylinder and then install the new seals. So I have just removed the old seals, so the new seals is going to be mounted. I finally got the bolt out. I drilled it out, but it was so close that I just destroyed it. As you can see, I just kept on drilling, and luckily I don't know if it catched enough heat or anything, but it started to spin inwards, and then I could grab like one of these really tiny pliers and remove it. So now we are back on the road. So we're gonna start with installing the new seals. They fit pretty well, but they are a little bit fragile, so I'm using a piece of piping, 2.5 inch. Just slowly hammer it in. Now we are going to continue with installing the new slave cylinder. You don't have to torque it like it's the end of the world, just so it sits and doesn't leak. Now we got everything prepped here. Now we are going to bleed the slave cylinder. I have missed this 2 times when I have changed the clutch, maybe 3 times also. It's very common. So as of right now, this is just completely empty, and you should not move it in and onwards without some brake fluid in it. So I'm going to hook it up, and we are going to pump in some brake fluid and push it 1 time so the air goes out and the oil gets sucked in. But you can see here, this is really like no wiggly, and it doesn't spin like crazy, whilst here is one that has many mileage on it. It spins and wiggles, so this is really bad. But even though this worked perfect and the clutch didn't slip or anything, I'm just doing this because I want to upgrade to a better gearbox. So here is the bleeding setup. I have hooked up a vacuum line filled with oil. There's a measurement, I don't know if it's like 450 millimeters of brake fluid in a vacuum line like this, but it should be see-through so you can see the oil level. Now I could see some air bubbles traveling up, and it could be quite messy, but I filled it with an oil can, so it got some pressure to push it down really. So now I'm just going to pump this slave cylinder in and out very carefully to see the air bubbles go and the oil getting sucked in, so it bleeds. Might get a little bit messy because I don't see where the level is right now, but we will find out. Okay, I can see it right now. So I can definitely see the air bubbles travel up. They suggest you do this like 4 or 5 times, then it will be enough. So that's enough, and this is a perfect time also to see that it's not leaking anywhere. So it just looks fine. So now I just have to empty out this in the oil can or the oil bucket. So now the clutch has been removed, and as you can see, there's a really like shiny finish to the clutch plate, to the pressure plate, and this is totally weared out, so it has done its miles. So I bet this clutch plate is OEM. I don't think it has been changed. This car has ran for 300,000 kilometers, so that's quite a lot, and a good job, because it still worked and it didn't slip. But I have measured it, and it is approximately 6 millimeters, and from the start it's 7.4, So 7.4 is the clutch plate. So the new plate, the sintered plate, it's 8.1 millimeters. So it's thicker. So you need to move the pressure plate out to compensate for the thicker Sinter clutch plate. So I have ordered 0.5 millimeters and 1 millimeters because I didn't know where I should land. But if we do a little bit of calculation, so the distance should make up for the thicker plate. So the difference between OEM and the Sinter one is 0.7 millimeters. And I calculated, or my thoughts on this was that the flywheel must have some wear to it as well. It can't be only the clutch plate and the pressure plate. So I'm going to install the new pressure plate and the thicker Sinter lamel, and then I'm going to use 0.5 because I'm calculating that is probably some little bit of wear to the flywheel as well. So 0.5 should be the difference, so it should sit perfect. If I had chosen 1 millimeter, for example, that might have worked. The site that sells these plates recommend 1 millimeter, but that's on like a brand new car, the difference. So this has done some miles. I have calculated with the wear, so 0.5 I think will be perfect. So we're gonna scuff off the flywheel and then install everything together with the distances. So now the flywheel has been scuffed off and wiped it down thoroughly with some alcohol. So it's super clean now. The best possible scenario would have been to remove this, get it to a machine shop to just take like the minimum to get it 100% flat and a new fresh surface would have been the best case, but I don't have access to it right now, so we will do it like this. I have done it like this all the times previously that I have done it, and it has worked fine, so we will continue with it. So now it's just to throw it up using this center tool to get it as centered as possible, and it's install it together with the distances. So the clutch is installed and tightened down, and notice that I have installed 2 guiding pins for the reassembly of the gearbox to make it a lot easier. So the gearbox should just slide in. You should not have to use any excessive force. If you have to use some force, then something is wrong. Stop immediately and take it down again. So this is where the real job starts. Taking everything apart is one thing. It basically comes apart, but putting everything together. The one thing that's pretty hard to do by yourself on the garage floor is getting the gearbox up again, but I have managed to do it a couple of times, so what should be different this time? So I'm just sliding it in on my homemade stand. So wish me luck, and I will see you again when the gearbox has started to come in place. So it was a real struggle even this time to get the gearbox in place, but now I have the secret key. You just have to keep calm. Whatever happens, just take it nice and easy. No excessive violence will fix this. This is a precision job. If you are by yourself like I am, I had some help of my wife during previous tries, but didn't work out. So this is the easiest solution. You have this cap right here, which is a inspection hole. So the best way is to jack up the gearbox. Try to get it onto the guiding pins that you have put up here. Then you will reach down with a light to make sure that the axle is going in to the clutch plate. Now it's not easy to see since the gearbox is in place, but when you have like 3 centimeters of a gap between the gearbox and the engine, you should just stop right there, go to this side right here, and you will need a 27 millimeter to just slightly move the crank a little bit, because you need the exact position to hit the splines, or else it won't go in. So I got a little bit desperate. I was not using excessive violence, but I did remove the drive shaft for the right hand side and the middle axle, and you should be able to do it without removing this, but it's much easier to just focus on one of the splines at a time, at least when you are alone. If you are 2 persons, then one could rotate the drive shaft a little bit and one could move the crank a little bit. But this is really tough if you don't do it with real thought through all the way. So it's a pretty sketchy job with this homemade jack. So, but I have done, I think this is my 5th gearbox change or clutch change. So it's quite similar on all the Saabs that I have done. The only thing that's different is the subframe basically. So now we're gonna tighten down the gearbox and do the reverse of everything. And since this takes a lot of time and basically the install is just the reverse of the removal, so I'm gonna get back to you when most of the stuff is in place, and we will bleed the clutch again to make sure no air is in the system. Then it's time to flush the gearbox and maybe take it for a short drive, which will be amazing. The car has been in the garage for like, I don't know, but it's weeks right now, so I haven't even tried out the coilovers yet, so that will be something to look forward to. I'm really happy to get the gearbox in place, because this is a hassle. If you are two persons it will be a lot easier, but it's still manageable if you are alone. So the gearbox is fully seated and in place. So now I have painted and cleaned off all the loose parts that are going to be installed again to make it really fresh. So I have filled up with 1 liter of oil in the gearbox, because this is for the gearbox flush. So now we're just gonna bleed the slave cylinder, and I'm gonna put back the subframe and install all the parts back together. What I'm not going to do is I'm going to keep some of the parts hanging in the front, because I'm going to install the Do 88 intercooler and also the pressure pipe and everything. And when that is installed I'm going to build the exhaust while I still have the car up on jack stands, so I don't have to pick it up and down all the time. So there is some work before I could put down the car and drive it. So the flush of the gearbox will wait, and I will do that in another episode, but it will just be driving the car around the block, doing some shifts, and then back in the garage, drain the oil and put the correct amount, which is 1.8 liters, back in the gearbox. So that will be later. So as of right now I'm going to install the heavy parts again. So now everything is almost done. It's time to bleed the slave cylinder. So I have opened up the brake fluid reservoir, and I have prepared the oil can with type 200 brake fluid. So the best way, in my opinion, as I said before, I have missed bleeding the slave cylinder prior to installing the gearbox, so then it has been really hard to get all the air bubbles out. But one of the way that has worked tremendously good is this way, and pushing brake fluid through the nozzle here, so that will force the air down and up, and the air bubbles will pop up in the brake reservoir. So that's a super easy way. You can do it by yourself, and it's hard to fail. So now the can is hooked up. So now I'm just gonna open the valve a little bit. I hope you can see something at least. And then just pump in the fluid and keep track of the reservoir so you don't overfill it. So I'm pumping it up to the max level almost, like so. Then we just close the valve. And that's it. We're done with bleeding the slave cylinder and the clutch. It's just that easy if you do it the right way. I have tried all these type of things. In Sweden we have something called Luftman, and there's also all types of vacuum bleeders and all types of advanced stuff, but this is super simple. It doesn't cost barely anything. A piece of vacuum line and you will be good to go. And yeah, works really good. So for the most part the job is done, and this is a really heavy job, both taking down dropping the subframe and picking out the gearbox and lifting it up. As long as you don't have a workshop and a great lift and all the correct tools that should be provided, then it will be kind of hard. I have split this job into some nights right now, so the work has been cut up a bit because you need to rest and gather some strength to do this job. So just go at it. You can do it by yourself at home. It will take some hours. Let's say if it's your first time, you could count a weekend in the garage maybe, because you will always stumble upon some problem. There might be some bolt that's not, there might be some bolt that's stuck. There might be something that breaks that you need to fix along the way. And if I have talked to some Saab mechanics, if they would have done this job with just changing the clutch or switching gearbox, it will take them about 4 to 6 hours. But then you will not see a tiny bit of paint anywhere. They will just go at the work straight up. No rust solvent, maybe a little bit rust solvent, but no grease anywhere. Just straight at it. Remove it, install it back together, good to go, out of the workshop, because they want to make money. So if you do it at home, you could do all this stuff that I have done right now. So grind it down, paint everything, get everything really nice, so when you install it back it looks awesome. And it feels good when you drive the car. So I can't wait to drive this car. But as of right now, this video has to be ended. There are 2 more videos that will come really shortly. One will be the installation of the intercooler, and the second one will be building a full exhaust. So both of these videos are going to air pretty soon, because I want to go out and drive this car and see what it can do on the road right now. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, it means a lot to me. We have just passed 5,000 subscribers, which is amazing, and I'm really thankful for that. But we are gonna climb higher, so please stay tuned to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!